I never thought the day would come when I'd follow my own husband through the rain with trembling hands and a phone camera pressed against my chest. But that night, as thunder cracked across the sky and my heart pounded like it wanted to claw its way out of me, I realized something. I wasn't just trying to expose him. I was afraid of what I might find. Afraid that the truth would shatter everything I thought our marriage was. Afraid that I'd uncover proof he didn't love me anymore. Or worse, proof he never truly had. I kept picturing his smile, that warm, gentle smile he gave me every morning, and wondering how much of it had been a lie. It all started 3 weeks earlier, when I began noticing small things. At first, they seemed harmless. Late-night texts he wouldn't explain, sudden errands that took hours, and a new cologne I'd never smelled on him before. But each little thing stacked on top of another until the weight felt too heavy to ignore. The shift in him was so subtle, so quiet, it scared me more than any loud fight ever could. Silence breeds suspicion, and in my case, suspicion grew into paranoia so quickly it felt like I was drowning in it. And the worst part? I couldn't talk to him about it. Every time I opened my mouth, my throat tightened as if my body itself didn't want to hear his answer. Then came the first twist, small compared to what would follow, but big enough to make my stomach drop. I found a receipt in his jacket pocket for a hotel 2 towns over. A single room. Paid in cash. The date? 2 days earlier. The time? The exact hour he told me he was stuck in traffic on his way home. My fingers shook as I stared at it, the thin paper feeling heavier than brick. It wasn't just the lie that hurt. It was how easily he'd said it, how normal he looked when he walked through the door that night. The receipt burned like a brand in my hand, and I knew something inside me had snapped. That was the moment I decided to expose him. Not publicly, God no, but to myself. I needed to see it with my own eyes. The truth, whatever it was. I needed proof even if it broke me. So I started watching him more closely. I paid attention to the times he left the house, the excuses, the glances at his phone. The lies piled up like a growing mountain, and eventually my fear turned into anger. And that anger pushed me to follow him on the night the storm crashed through our town. I watched him leave the house at exactly 9:17 p.m. He didn't know I was awake. He didn't know I'd slipped out behind him wearing a hooded jacket and shoes quiet enough to make me feel like a thief. He got into his car and drove off, and I followed at a distance, my headlights off until the road got too dark to risk it. My heart beat in my ears so loudly I wondered if he would somehow hear it through the rearview mirror. I kept imagining the moment he'd discover me following him. The anger, the betrayal, the disappointment. But at the same time I imagined something worse. Finding him with another woman. The rain was coming down so hard by the time we reached the edge of town that I could barely see past the wipers. My eyes stung from staring so intensely. He finally slowed down near an old warehouse by the river, the kind of place nobody visited unless they had something to hide. My breath caught in my throat as he parked. Then he stepped out of the car with something in his hand. A black backpack. I zoomed in with my phone camera, heart racing. What was he carrying? Why was he at a warehouse at nearly 10 at night? I watched him walk toward a side door that looked rusted shut. But it wasn't. He pushed it open easily and slipped inside. My mind spiraled with possibilities. Drugs. A secret job? A hidden life? Another woman? A criminal deal? Every theory felt more absurd than the last, yet every one of them made my chest tighten. I waited almost a full minute before stepping out of my car and running toward the same door, rain soaking me instantly. When I pressed my hand against the cold metal handle, I hesitated. Opening that door felt like opening Pandora's box. I didn't know if I was ready for whatever waited on the other side. Inside, the warehouse was darker than I expected. The only light came from a single bulb dangling far in the back, swinging gently like someone had bumped into it. I crept forward, my heart pounding so hard the sound echoed in my ears like distant drums. The air smelled like dust, rain, and something else, something metallic. I followed the glow of the bulb until I started hearing voices. Just one at first, my husband's. He was speaking softly, almost whispering. Then another voice answered him, but it wasn't a woman. It was a man's voice. Deep, rough, almost threatening. That moment, hearing another man talk to my husband in a place like this, was the second twist that shattered my assumptions. I pressed myself against a stack of wooden crates and peeked around the corner. My husband stood facing a man I didn't recognize. The man was taller than him, dressed in all black, and holding a small metal box. I watched in horror as my husband handed him the black backpack. The man opened it, looked inside and nodded slowly. My heart felt like it dropped through the floor. What was in that bag? Money? Documents? Something illegal? I didn't know, but fear curled up inside me like a fist. I was about to take a video, my phone already lifted, when I heard something else. Footsteps. Behind me. Close. Too close. I froze as the sound grew louder, heavier, approaching fast. I turned my head slowly, terrified of what, or who I would find. And that was when a hand suddenly grabbed my shoulder. The moment that hand clamped down on my shoulder, my entire body locked up, too stunned even to scream. The grip was firm, almost painfully tight, and for a single heartbeat I believed I was about to die right there in that dark warehouse. I spun around with my breath trapped in my chest, expecting the tall man in black, or worse, expecting to see someone who knew exactly what I was trying to do. But instead, standing inches behind me, was a teenage boy no older than 17. His hoodie was soaked from the rain, and his eyes were wide with panic, not anger. Before I could speak, he pressed a finger to his lips, silently begging me not to make a sound. I didn't understand. Who was he? How long had he been behind me? Why would he, of all people, be hiding inside a warehouse at night? Just as my confusion hit its peak, he whispered so softly I almost didn't hear him. "You shouldn't be here," he said, shaking his head like he knew exactly what was happening in the back of the warehouse. My heart pounded even harder, the sound echoing in my own ears. My mind was drowning in questions. But the boy glanced toward the corner where my husband and the stranger stood, and fear flickered through his eyes. "He's trying to protect you," the boy added. "Protect me? My husband? From what?" That sentence hit me like a blow to the chest. Nothing made sense. My husband wasn't acting like someone trying to protect me. He looked like someone who was hiding something dangerous, something he didn't want me to ever find out. But before I could ask the boy what he meant, a loud sound echoed through the warehouse. The sharp metallic slam of the mysterious man shutting the metal box. The boy's head snapped toward the noise, and he motioned for me to step back. "Please," he whispered urgently. "Don't let them see you." But I was done hiding. Fear mixed with rage, and something reckless took over my body. I brushed past the boy, my footsteps almost silent on the concrete floor, and peeked around the crates again. But what I saw next sent a jolt of shock through me so powerful I nearly stumbled. The man in black wasn't giving the box to my husband. My husband was giving it to him. And when the man opened it, I saw what was inside. Dozens of small memory cards neatly stacked in rows. My stomach twisted. Files? Secret recordings? Evidence? My mind flooded with every dark scenario possible. Then the man spoke in a low voice that made my skin crawl. "This is everything?" he asked. My husband nodded. "Everything you asked for." I felt my heart fracture in that moment. Was my husband working for this man? Was he spying on someone? Betraying someone? Was I being recorded? In that split-second panic I shifted my weight, and the toe of my shoe hit a small piece of metal on the floor. It clattered against the concrete with a loud, sharp clang that echoed through the entire warehouse. Both men snapped their heads toward me. My breath stopped. My vision tunneled. For a second the world stood still. My husband's face went pale, not with guilt but with something closer to horror. The man in black narrowed his eyes, stepping forward like a predator who had just spotted prey. I tried to run, but before I could take a single step, the teenage boy darted in front of me and grabbed my wrist. "Come on," he hissed, pulling me with strength I didn't expect. We sprinted toward another door on the opposite side of the warehouse. I could hear heavy footsteps behind us, the stranger yelling something I couldn't understand over the pounding in my ears. The boy shoved the door open and cold rain hit my face like needles. We stumbled into the darkness outside, slipping through mud as thunder cracked across the sky. "This way," he shouted, pulling me toward a narrow alley behind the building. My lungs burned. My heart raced. I kept glancing back, expecting to see the man in black chasing us. But instead I saw something worse. My husband standing in the doorway, staring directly at me. He wasn't angry. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't running after me. He looked devastated. like I had just broken his heart. The teenage boy didn't give me time to process it. He kept dragging me down the alley until we reached an old fence. He climbed over with practiced ease, then turned back to help me. When my feet hit the ground on the other side, I doubled over, gasping for air. The rain soaked my hair, my clothes, my skin, but I barely felt it. My mind was spiraling too fast to feel anything except confusion and terror. "Who are you?" I finally managed to say between breaths. The boy hesitated, looking torn. He pushed back his wet hair and swallowed hard. "My name is Caleb," he said softly. "And he didn't want you involved in this." "Who?" I asked, even though part of me already knew. "Your husband," he said. My blood went cold. He continued, voice trembling. "He's been trying to protect you for months. But things got worse. And the guy you saw tonight? He's dangerous. If he finds out you know anything." But before he could finish, a loud crack split the air. Not thunder. A gunshot. Caleb grabbed my arm and pulled me behind a dumpster, both of us crouching low as another gunshot followed. My entire body shook uncontrollably. Were they shooting at us? Or at each other? I didn't know. I didn't care. All I knew was that my husband was back there in that warehouse with a man who had a gun, and I had no idea if he was dead or alive. Part of me wanted to run. The other part wanted to go back and save him. Just when I started to stand, Caleb shoved me back down. "Don't," he yelled. "He told me that if anything ever happened, I needed to keep you safe. He made me promise." My breath caught. My husband had spoken to this boy? Trusted him? Protected me behind my back? None of it made sense. But then came the moment that changed everything. The twist so big it made the rest of the night feel like a warm-up. Caleb looked at me with guilt flooding his eyes and said, "I'm sorry you had to find out like this, but your husband isn't who you think he is." Lightning flashed above us, and he whispered the words that made my entire world tilt. "He used to work undercover for them." And before I could ask who them was, we heard footsteps approaching fast, too fast, and a dark figure appeared at the end of the alley. The dark figure stepped into the alley with slow, deliberate movements, like a shadow peeling itself off the night. The rain glistened on his coat, and for a moment all I could hear was the pounding of water against metal, and the frantic thundering of my own pulse. Caleb tensed beside me, his grip tightening around my wrist as if he could hold me together just by not letting go. My breath stilled in my chest when the figure lifted his head, revealing the sharp jawline and cold, merciless eyes I had seen inside the warehouse. The man in black. He had followed us. Caleb pulled me deeper behind the dumpster, whispering, "Stay low." But I could tell from the tremor in his voice that he didn't really believe hiding would save us. The man in black paused only a few feet from where we crouched, scanning the alley like he could smell our fear. Then he took a step closer. Another. And another. The wet gravel crunched under his boots, each sound a warning that our time was running out. My lungs tightened with panic. My thoughts kept flashing back to my husband, his horrified expression when he saw me, the way he didn't chase us, the gunshots I'd heard after. Was he alive? Hurt? Captured? I didn't know, and the uncertainty clawed at my heart like something alive. I wanted to protect him even after everything, just as much as I wanted him to protect me. The man in black stopped directly beside our hiding place. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying he wouldn't look down. But then, just as his hand started to reach toward the dumpster, a voice echoed through the alley like a crack of lightning. "Hey!" The man spun around immediately. I peeked over the metal edge, and my heart nearly stopped. It was my husband. He stood at the opposite end of the alley, soaked in rain, chest heaving, a thin line of blood on his cheek. His eyes weren't gentle or warm anymore. They were sharp, fierce, burning with a fire I had never seen in him. He looked like a man who had seen too much darkness, and was ready to face it again. The man in black smirked. "You should have stayed inside, Daniel," he said. "You weren't part of the job anymore." Job. That word hit me like a punch. My husband, my gentle, soft-spoken husband, had a job involving men like this. He didn't respond. Instead, he stepped forward, rain dripping down his jaw. "Leave the boy out of this. Leave my wife out of this. I'm the one you want." A chill raced through me. My husband was offering himself up like a sacrifice. The man in black tilted his head. You owe us those drives, he said. You ran off with evidence that wasn't yours. Evidence. Drives. Suddenly the memory cards made sense. Something big. Something dangerous. Something worth killing for. The man took a step toward him, and Caleb grabbed my arm. We have to go now, he whispered urgently. If they take him, we can still get him back. But if he sees you, he won't fight. He'll surrender. Tears stung my eyes. My husband would surrender. For me? After all the lies, all the secrets, all the nights he slipped away. He still loved me enough to put himself in harm's way. I wanted to run to him. I wanted to shout his name. But in that moment I knew Caleb was right. If the man in black realized I was there, everything would end. So Caleb pulled me back step by step, until we were nearly at the end of the alley. I looked over my shoulder one last time. And that's when everything exploded. The man in black lunged toward my husband. My husband dodged, tackling him into the wall, both of them slipping on rain-soaked pavement. A gun skidded across the ground. They fought with a desperation that made my stomach twist, each punch echoing like thunder. Then with a sickening thud, my husband was thrown to the ground. The man in black raised the gun. I gasped so loudly Caleb had to slap a hand over my mouth. Everything slowed. My heartbeat. The rain. The sound of my own breath. The man aimed the gun at my husband's chest and pulled the trigger. But instead of the crack of a gunshot, there was a click. The gun jammed. My husband used the moment to kick him hard in the knee, sending him staggering. But before the fight could continue, the sound of police sirens burst through the night. Red and blue lights flashed against the wet alley walls. The man in black stepped back, eyes burning with hatred. He looked directly at my husband. This isn't over, he growled. Then he vanished around the corner, swallowed by the storm. Officers poured into the alley seconds later. Caleb and I stepped out, and for the first time that night my husband saw me fully. Saw that I hadn't run home like he wanted. His face softened, and the fierce storm inside his eyes melted into fear, worry, and love all at once. You followed me, he said quietly. Not angry. Not surprised. Just broken. I ran to him, throwing my arms around him. He winced, holding me tightly despite the pain. I cried into his chest, rain mixing with tears, my mind overwhelmed by everything I had seen, everything I had feared. Daniel, what is happening? I whispered. What have you been hiding from me? For a long moment he didn't answer. The officers were busy searching the area, talking to Caleb, securing the scene. Finally, my husband took a shaky breath and cupped my face in his hands. I used to work undercover, he said. Before I met you. Before I knew there was anything in my life worth protecting. I infiltrated a criminal group that trafficked information, dangerous information. I gathered evidence. Too much evidence. His voice cracked. And when I tried to walk away, they came after me. My heart twisted. Why didn't you tell me? He swallowed hard. Because I wanted a normal life with you. I didn't want my past to touch you. I didn't want you to be afraid of me. His forehead rested against mine. I tried to keep you safe, even if it meant lying. A wave of emotions crashed over me, hurt, anger, fear. But under all of it was something deeper, something warm, something familiar. Love. Pure, stubborn, complicated love. I held him tighter. Next time, I whispered, protect me by telling me the truth. His breath trembled. I promise. Caleb approached us, hands in his hoodie pockets, his expression gentle. He saved my life a long time ago, he said quietly. That's why I owed him. That's why I helped him protect you. The police escorted us to safety, but as we walked away from the alley, I looked back one last time. The storm was easing. The darkness was fading. But I knew this wasn't the end. That man would return someday. The past would try to pull my husband back. But now, I wasn't afraid. Because the truth, the whole truth, had pulled me back into love. And this time we would face the darkness together.